For months, whispers echoed through the palace walls the alleged rift between Queen Camilla and Princess Kate. But now, the silence has been shattered. Kate's rare and deliberate words have sent shockwaves through Britain. What began as quiet speculation has turned into the most explosive royal feud in decades, with loyalties being tested from Windsor to Westminster. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The monarchy, long known for its silence, has suddenly found itself in the center of a storm that feels both deeply personal and politically perilous. The tension has been building quietly for years, an invisible current beneath the polished surface of royal appearances. The public had sensed it, the press had hinted at it, but no one expected the first crack to come from Kate herself. Her words, though measured and restrained, carried the weight of years of quiet observation, emotional endurance. She spoke not to attack, but to release the truth that had long been buried under royal diplomacy. The world listened, stunned, as the woman often seen as the monarchy's calm center finally let emotion show through the cracks. The reaction was instant and ferocious. Within hours, palace aides scrambled to contain the narrative, as headlines ignited across every major outlet. The phrase, "Royal Cold War," began trending worldwide, painting a picture of a monarchy struggling to keep its internal struggles hidden from public view. Every gesture, every glance from recent months was re-examined. Kate's subtle smiles, her polite distance from Camilla, her sudden absences at certain events, all seen now in a new and provocative light. The media frenzy grew uncontrollable, spinning speculation into accusation. Even royal insiders whispered about crisis meetings held in hushed tones, each one more desperate than the last to protect the royal image. Through it all, Kate remained composed, her silence now a weapon sharper than any public outburst. Behind closed doors, however, the atmosphere was far from composed. Reports suggested Queen Camilla's reaction was furious yet controlled, a phrase that did little to mask the turmoil brewing within. For Camilla, whose public acceptance had been hard-won after years of scrutiny, Kate's words felt like betrayal from within the very family she had fought to unite. And yet, others saw something different in Kate's statement, a plea for peace, cloaked in grace, delivered by a woman who had reached her limit. It wasn't about rivalry anymore, it was about truth colliding with tradition and emotion finally breaking through protocol. As the palace continued to spiral into confusion, one thing became clear. Kate's calm tone concealed more than anyone realized. It wasn't simply a reaction, it was the echo of years of quiet tension, unspoken slights, and unacknowledged power shifts within the post royal hierarchy. The Queen's unspoken expectations, the pressure of legacy, and the weight of image had all converged in this single, defining moment. But behind Kate's calm tone lies years of quiet tension, a feud that traces back to power, legacy, and the Queen's unspoken expectations. Every feud has a beginning. Long before the cameras caught frost in their glances, subtle slights and quiet competition brewed beneath the surface. The rivalry between Kate and Camilla didn't erupt overnight. It was a ticking time bomb, fueled by royal politics and personal pride. The monarchy has always been an arena of silent wars, where smiles hide suspicion and titles mask tension. But when King Charles ascended the throne, the balance that once held the royal women together began to shift. Camilla, newly crowned and determined to command respect as queen consort, found herself facing an unexpected challenge not from scandal or politics, but from the quiet strength of a woman the world had already embraced as the monarchy's future, Princess Kate. Camilla's coronation marked not only the beginning of her reign, but the reordering of royal hierarchy itself. The world saw a queen, but behind palace walls, whispers grew louder. Camilla's place might have been official, yet Kate's influence was undeniable. The courtiers saw it first. The staff felt it daily, a contrast too striking to ignore. Camilla represented continuity, tradition, and the past. Kate embodied renewal, modernity, and the future. While one commanded authority through experience, the other inspired devotion through grace. And in the monarchy, admiration can be far more dangerous than authority. As public adoration for Kate soared, the palace faced an impossible balancing act, protecting the dignity of its new queen while nurturing the popularity of the woman destined to follow her. Every headline praising Kate seemed to cast a shadow over Camilla. Her efforts to solidify her reign met with quiet resistance from a public that still saw Kate as the living image of a monarchy reborn through compassion. It wasn't deliberate rebellion. Kate never sought to compete, but perception became power, and perception is something no crown can fully control. Even Charles, proud yet weary from decades of scrutiny, saw how the world's eyes lingered longer on Kate. It was never said aloud, but the dynamic was clear. While Camilla wore the crown, Kate carried the people's hearts. Insiders began recalling moments when Queen Elizabeth herself had quietly advised Kate to endure power quietly. A phrase that now felt prophetic. Those words, spoken in confidence, became the foundation of Kate's public composure. She learned to lead through subtlety, influence through restraint, and speak volumes through silence. It was a lesson that Camilla, who had fought tooth and nail to be accepted, could never afford to follow. For her, silence had once meant scandal. For Kate, it meant strategy. The difference between survival and serenity was how each woman wielded her silence, and both knew that silence could either protect or destroy. But in private, the rivalry simmered. There were moments Camilla reportedly felt overshadowed public engagements, where cheers for Kate drowned out her presence, photographs where attention leaned subtly toward the younger woman. Every comparison cut deeper, not because of vanity, but because of the truth they revealed. The monarchy was evolving, and Camilla's reign, though legitimate, already felt transitional. She was the queen of the present, but Kate was the queen of tomorrow. The realization was both empowering and terrifying for the monarchy, and for the women who stood at its center. As weeks turned to months, that quiet tension began shaping decisions, influencing alliances, and coloring every royal appearance. And though both women maintained their composure in public, those who truly understood the rhythm of royal life sensed that something was changing. A rivalry once rooted in personality was now entangled in purpose. It was no longer about favor, it was about legacy, image, and the very definition of the monarchy's future. And as the monarchy transitioned under King Charles, what began as rivalry evolved into something far deeper, a struggle for the royal image itself. When Charles ascended the throne, the monarchy needed unity, but instead, it got whispers of division. Behind closed doors, strategies were crafted, alliances formed, and one question loomed large. Who truly embodies the future of the crown? Camilla, the king's chosen queen, or Kate, the nation's beloved princess? What should have been a seamless transition into a new era quickly became a test of loyalty, influence, and perception. The royal household, already fragile after years of scrutiny, found itself torn between two visions of power, one built on tradition, the other on transformation. And in a monarchy where image means survival, the battle for perception became a silent war that neither side could afford to lose. The palace's communications machinery began spinning faster than ever before. Carefully curated appearances, timed interviews, and subtle leaks became the new weapons of choice. Team Camilla worked tirelessly to fortify the Queen's image as a dignified, stabilizing force beside her husband. Meanwhile, Team Catherine leaned into the people's affection for a modern, relatable princess, one who represented grace, empathy, and quiet strength. Each photograph, each speech, and each public smile carried hidden strategy. Royal experts whispered that the institution was splitting in two, that even the staff had chosen sides. And within those ancient walls, the crown's image, the very symbol of continuity, was being reshaped by competing hands. Camilla's approach was steeped in tradition. She upheld ceremony, protocol, and the notion that royalty must remain apart from the world to preserve mystique. Her inner circle saw her as the protector of the monarchy's old soul. Kate, however, had become the embodiment of modern monarchy. Her compassion felt genuine, her presence approachable. She could command admiration without demanding it. To the people, she represented hope, a bridge between the crown's past and its uncertain future. The contrast was undeniable. and with each passing day, the press sharpened the divide. Headlines compared, commentators speculated, and suddenly, the monarchy's story was no longer about service, it was about survival. Caught in the middle stood Prince William. To him, the feud wasn't just about image, it was personal. He understood his father's devotion to Camilla and respected the role she played beside the king. Yet he also saw how the mounting comparisons and subtle slights wounded his wife. Behind his composed exterior, a quiet frustration brewed. He wanted peace, yet every public engagement seemed to deepen the divide. Insiders whispered of tense meetings, of William's attempts to mediate between loyalty to his father and the need to protect Catherine's integrity. For a man destined to one day lead, the struggle was more than political, it was deeply human. The tension extended beyond the royal family into the palace corridors themselves. Courtiers spoke of factions, loyalists who aligned with Camilla's court, and those who quietly supported Kate's. Briefings were leaked, headlines strategically planted, and the once unified palace voice began to fracture. Each side believed they were defending the monarchy's legacy, but in truth, both were fueling a perception crisis the crown could not control. The public began to sense the fractures, and what had once been whispered gossip was now front-page reality. The monarchy's polished exterior was cracking, and the illusion of perfect unity was slipping away. For Kate, this was a turning point. Every action she took, every word she uttered, was being interpreted through the lens of rivalry. Yet through the storm, she remained silent, dignified, and calculating. She understood something others did not, that silence can be power, and timing can be everything. But deep down, she knew there would come a day when she could no longer remain quiet, when defending her truth would become inevitable. And that moment came sooner than anyone expected, when one private event spiraled into a storm that could no longer be contained. It was meant to be a quiet royal dinner, intimate, formal, and diplomatic. But within hours, that evening became infamous. Witnesses described tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Between forced smiles and coded remarks, something snapped, and by the next morning, the palace corridors were buzzing with a single question. What really happened between Kate and Camilla that night? What began as a simple gathering to celebrate unity soon became the breaking point in an already fragile relationship. Beneath the surface of polite conversation, years of unspoken rivalry and emotional restraint collided in a moment that neither woman could undo. They had been seated side by side, a decision that many insiders later questioned. The discomfort was immediate, visible even to those trained to overlook royal tension. Every word exchanged seemed to carry a double meaning, every glance loaded with silent defiance. Those present recalled how conversation at the table flowed easily around them. Yet between the two royal women, there was an almost electric stillness. The air was charged, and although no one dared intervene, everyone felt something monumental was unraveling. The first hint of confrontation came over a seemingly harmless discussion about royal duties and public image. Camilla, proud of her decades of endurance within the institution, reportedly made a remark that Kate took as a thinly veiled critique of her growing public popularity. Kate's reply, calm but piercing, cut through the silence. It wasn't disrespectful, it was deliberate, an assertion of quiet authority. William, ever the peacemaker, attempted to ease the tension, but his worried expression betrayed the weight of what was happening. He knew that this was no ordinary disagreement, it was a clash of ideologies, generations, and power. By the time dessert was served, the divide had become impossible to ignore. Guests whispered of the Queen Consort's rigid posture and Kate's composed serenity. One attendee later described the atmosphere as frozen diplomacy, a polite facade masking genuine hostility. The conversation ended abruptly when Camilla excused herself earlier than expected, leaving the table in stunned silence. It was a moment that needed no witness to become legend. Within hours, the whispers had escaped the palace walls. A leak emerged before dawn, reportedly from someone close to the event. The story spread like wildfire. Camilla was left, humiliated. Kate remained composed. Whether truth or exaggeration, the effect was the same. The press seized it, coining the sensational phrase, the clash of queens. Overnight, the monarchy's internal tension became the nation's favorite conversation. Commentators dissected body language, tone, and even choice of attire, framing the dinner as a symbolic showdown for the crown's image. Inside Buckingham, panic ensued. Public sympathy leaned unmistakably toward Kate, the young mother, who carried herself with grace amidst provocation. For a monarchy desperate to preserve unity, the optics were catastrophic. Damage control efforts were swift but ineffective. The more the palace tried to downplay the rumors, the more credibility they gained. Every denial sounded like confirmation, every silence like guilt. What should have been a private misunderstanding had erupted into a global spectacle. And yet, in the chaos that followed, Kate remained silent once again. Her refusal to engage only deepened the mystery, painting her as the composed victim of a royal storm. Behind the scenes, however, her team was already preparing for what was to come. This was no longer about a single dinner, it was about truth, dignity, and control. But instead of silencing the speculation, the palace's attempts only poured fuel on the fire, and Kate's eventual response would send shockwaves far beyond Buckingham. Even the calmest hearts have limits. For years, Kate carried herself with restraint, a model of royal composure. But behind the serene smile, the weight of rumors and the shadow of comparison began to take its toll. Insiders reveal a moment when the pressure became unbearable, and Kate decided silence was no longer an option. The endless scrutiny, the relentless comparison to Camilla, and even to the late Princess Diana, had transformed admiration into expectation and grace into burden. Every movement, every gesture was analyzed, twisted, and weaponized. To the world, she seemed untouchable. Yet behind closed doors, the strain began to show. Nights grew longer, her words fewer, and even William, who knew her best, could see the quiet breaking point drawing near. The comparisons were perhaps the cruelest part. To some, she was Diana's spiritual successor, a woman of empathy and light. To others, she was being measured against a queen who had spent decades fighting for her place beside Charles. Kate stood between two legacies, one of tragedy, the other of triumph, expected to uphold both, yet belonging fully to neither. Each headline carried a silent judgment. Is she too cautious? Too perfect? Too distant? They forgot that beneath the title was a human being carrying the weight of history she never asked to inherit. And with every passing day, the palace's internal politics only intensified the emotional toll. William's concern deepened as he watched the light in his wife's eyes dim under the pressure. He had always admired her strength, her ability to weather storms without complaint, but now, even he could see that her composure was costing her peace. Their private conversations turned from future plans to quiet reflections on how much longer she could endure the unrelenting noise. For a man who had lived through his mother's heartbreak in the public eye, the sight of his wife facing the same emotional isolation struck a painful chord. He urged her to take a step back, to speak her truth before the silence consumed her entirely. In those still moments of reflection, Kate's thoughts turned not to herself, but to her children, to the legacy she wanted them to inherit. She understood that the image of their mother would one day shape how the world viewed them. To protect them, she needed to protect her own dignity. A trusted confidant encouraged her to find her voice not through confrontation, but through quiet courage. "You don't have to shout to be heard," she was told. And so, for the first time in years, Kate decided to break her silence, carefully crafting a message that was neither accusation nor defense, but truth wrapped in grace. When her words finally reached the public, they carried an emotional weight few could have anticipated. It wasn't the length of her statement that mattered, but the power behind it, a simple acknowledgement that behind every royal headline stood a human heart. The tone was soft, yet firm, a reflection of the woman she had become, resilient, wise, and unafraid. Her message wasn't directed at Camilla, nor at the media, but at the world that had demanded perfection from her. She reminded them that even within the grandeur of monarchy, humanity must come first. The reaction was immediate. The public, once divided by gossip, rallied behind her words. They saw not a royal figure, but a woman who had endured quietly for far too long. And in that moment, Kate transformed from symbol to voice, a voice that spoke not only for herself, but for every woman who had ever been silenced by expectation. And when those words reached the world, they didn't just defend Kate, they exposed the quiet fractures of the monarchy itself. Queen Camilla's silence after Kate's statement spoke volumes. Behind the palace gates, aides whispered of outrage and disbelief. The Queen, who prided herself on stoic control, now faced the greatest threat to her public image, not from the media, but from within her own family. For a woman who had built her reputation on resilience and restraint, Kate's words felt like a challenge to her authority and a betrayal of the fragile harmony she believed she had restored. In her private quarters, sources said disbelief quickly gave way to quiet fury. She felt blindsided, not only by the timing of Kate's message, but by the public's overwhelming sympathy toward it. For years, Camilla had fought to win respect in the shadow of Diana's memory, only to find herself once again cast as the villain in a royal story she thought she had rewritten. Charles, meanwhile, found himself in an impossible position. As king, his duty was to maintain unity. As husband, he could not ignore his wife's anguish. And as father-in-law, he understood the pain behind Kate's words. He had seen the toll that public life had taken on her and admired her restraint. Yet now, he was forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that his reign was being overshadowed by a feud that threatened the very foundation of the monarchy. Those close to him described a man torn in two, trying to protect his queen while knowing the public would not forgive him if he appeared to silence the woman who had captured their hearts. Every decision risked deepening the fracture. Courtiers debated into the early hours, unsure whether to issue a response, deny the tension, or let the story fade. But nothing faded. Every day, headlines grew more aggressive. Queen in crisis. Silent war behind. Palace doors. Kate's truth breaks the crown's silence. Each headline widened the divide between the two women and exposed the monarchy's struggle to control its own narrative. For decades, the palace had operated by one rule: never explain, never complain. But now that silence was being interpreted as guilt, some aides urged Camilla to respond personally, while others begged her to remain silent, fearing another statement might only deepen the wound. Rumors of a private confrontation began to swirl. The press hinted at a tense exchange between Kate and Camilla during a private meeting arranged by Charles. Whether true or not, the whispers were enough to capture the world's imagination. Stories spread of icy glances and clipped tones, of words that could not be unsaid. The monarchy's most guarded relationships were now public theatre, with every silence dissected and every smile questioned. Even within the household, loyalties began to shift. Some believed Kate had gone too far. Others quietly admitted she had said what many had long felt. The crown, for all its history, suddenly seemed fragile, as if one more misstep could shatter it entirely. Camilla, however, was not a woman easily defeated. Beneath her calm exterior burned a determination forged from decades of surviving scandal. She resolved to reclaim control, not through confrontation, but through careful calculation. If the narrative had escaped her, she would find a way to rewrite it once again. Those close to her spoke of a renewed focus, private meetings, strategic appearances, subtle shifts in messaging. The Queen was not ready to be undone by emotion. She understood power in its quietest form, reputation. Yet even as she prepared her counter, something unexpected loomed on the horizon, something no strategy could anticipate, and no preparation could prevent. But even as Camilla prepared her counter, fate intervened, and an unexpected event turned sympathy entirely toward Kate. Just when the palace believed the storm was calming, a mysterious leak reignited everything. Private correspondence words never meant for the public surfaced online. The tone, the details, the timing, everything pointed toward betrayal from someone close to the throne. And at the heart of it all, one question burned. Who wanted to destroy Kate's credibility? It wasn't just a minor miscommunication. It was an orchestrated strike, designed to shake the royal foundation that had barely begun to steady. The leak came at the worst possible moment, just as the public began to believe that peace might return. Instead, the monarchy was plunged into yet another crisis, one that would reach deeper and cut sharper than anyone could have predicted. The messages allegedly revealed personal frustrations, private opinions, and intimate exchanges between senior royals. Taken out of context, they painted a picture of deep divisions within the family, of mistrust and manipulation lurking behind the first palace's polished image. To the world, it looked as though the royals had been at war with one another long before the feud became public. Yet to insiders, what was more shocking than the content itself was the betrayal it represented. The leak could have only come from someone with extraordinary access, someone within the palace walls, and that realization sent tremors through the entire institution. Almost overnight, public sympathy swung even further toward Kate. The woman who had once been accused of disrupting royal order was now seen as the victim of palace politics gone wrong. Commentators called it a character assassination attempt, and social media exploded with anger. Hashtags supporting her filled timelines, and public opinion turned into a wave of emotional defense. People saw her not as a royal, but as a mother and a wife, wronged by forces beyond her control. For the first time, even her critics admitted that the treatment she faced bordered on cruelty. Kate's silence, once questioned, was now revered as a mark of dignity under fire. Inside Buckingham, however, panic reigned. A confidential internal inquiry was launched almost immediately, led by senior aides trusted by both the King and Prince William. No one was above suspicion. Every device, every access log, every chain of communication was examined. The walls that had once represented trust now felt like barriers of fear. Those who had once spoken freely began guarding their words. A chilling realization spread across the royal staff. Someone among them had broken the most sacred rule of all, discretion. And the motive behind that betrayal was as murky as the leak itself. It didn't take long for speculation to take a dangerous turn. Whispers pointed in one direction toward Queen Camilla. Whether fair or not, her name became the focus of relentless gossip. Some claimed the leak was a calculated move to regain public control, to reframe the narrative that had so far favored Kate. Others dismissed it as cruel fabrication designed to divide the household even further. But in the court of public opinion, rumors don't need evidence, they only need momentum. And by the time the palace tried to quiet them, the damage had already been done. The monarchy's image suffered yet another devastating blow. What had begun as an internal feud between two powerful women had now evolved into a global spectacle of betrayal and suspicion. The institution that prided itself on secrecy found itself stripped bare before a world eager for scandal. Within the family, trust disintegrated. Conversations were shorter, glances colder, and alliances quieter. The crown itself began to feel less like a symbol of continuity and more like a fragile relic, one misstep away from collapse. And as Britain divided between supporters of Camilla and loyalists to Kate, one thing became certain: only one woman would emerge as the true face of the monarchy's future. Outside the palace walls, the people had already chosen their queen. Social media lit up with words of support for Kate, her every gesture dissected, her every word praised as authenticity in an age of image. The monarchy, for all its centuries of control, found itself at the mercy of public sentiment, and the people's voice was louder than any crown. For the first time in recent memory, the court of public opinion carried more weight than the royal decree. Every platform, every outlet echoed a single sentiment that Kate, not Camilla, embodied the heart and future of the monarchy. The emotional tide that once lifted Diana now rose again, sweeping through generations who saw in Kate a reflection of truth, compassion, and quiet strength. The global response was immediate and overwhelming. Hashtags of solidarity trended across continents, and television pundits debated whether the monarchy itself was facing a reckoning. The younger generation viewed Kate as a bridge between tradition and modernity, someone who understood the pressure of the spotlight yet refused to let it define her. To them, she wasn't just a princess, she was a symbol of dignity under siege. Comparisons to Princess Diana flooded the media, drawing eerie parallels between two women separated by time but united by empathy. Commentators described Kate as Diana's spirit reborn in diplomacy. That connection, raw, emotional, and nostalgic, cemented her as the people's choice for the monarchy's moral compass. Meanwhile, behind palace doors, the mood grew heavier. Camilla's approval ratings, once stable, began to crumble under the weight of relentless headlines. The Queen's silence, once perceived as strength, was now seen as guilt. Even her most loyal defenders found it hard to drown out the growing discontent. The public saw the contrast starkly: Kate's grace versus Camilla's guardedness, one representing vulnerability, the other control. And in that contrast, sympathy tilted decisively. The monarchy had always thrived on image, but this time, image alone could not save them. The world wasn't interested in crowns and titles. It wanted authenticity, and Kate had it in abundance. King Charles, already weary from the emotional toll of the feud, began to show signs of strain. Those closest to him whispered of sleepless nights and visible fatigue. His reign, meant to symbolize continuity and calm after decades of waiting, had become defined by conflict and division. Public appearances became more subdued, and even his speeches carried an undercurrent of exhaustion. The stress of balancing loyalty to his wife with his duty as father and monarch was beginning to take a visible toll. The monarchy was not collapsing, but its fractures were showing in the man who wore its crown. And then came Prince William. Steady, measured, and fiercely protective, he emerged as the family's quiet stabilizer. His words were few, but his presence spoke volumes. The public saw him not as a prince bound by protocol, but as a husband standing beside his wife. His actions, subtle, deliberate, brought renewed respect to his name. In the eyes of many, he represented the monarchy's last hope for redemption. When William publicly praised Kate's strength and composure, it wasn't just a husband defending his wife. It was a future king, signaling what kind of reign he intended to lead. As the royal family scrambled to repair its image, it became clear that something fundamental had shifted. The monarchy could no longer dictate its narrative. The people now did. Every attempt at control only strengthened the perception that authenticity, not authority, ruled the public imagination. Advisors urged unity, but the truth was undeniable. The old ways were crumbling, and a new kind of royalty was emerging. The family, once defined by secrecy, was now forced to evolve under the unrelenting gaze of the world. And yet, amidst this storm of loyalty and loss, a final revelation was about to rewrite the feud's entire history and reveal who had truly been pulling the strings. After months of speculation, the truth surfaced from the most unexpected source. The feud that captivated the world wasn't born of vanity or jealousy, but of manipulation, misunderstanding, and survival within a centuries-old system. And when Kate finally addressed the nation again, her message transformed the scandal into a moment of unity the monarchy desperately needed. For months, the public had been led to believe in a narrative of two royal women at war, one protecting her throne, the other defending her reputation. But behind the headlines and carefully crafted tabloid stories, the real battle had not been between Kate and Camilla, but between truth and the machinery of media manipulation that thrived on royal chaos. As journalists and palace aides began piecing together what had really happened, the picture that emerged was shocking. Several so-called sources who had stoked the feud narrative were, in fact, tied to media insiders desperate for ratings and readership. Private communications had been exaggerated, half-truths distorted, and tensions inflated into scandalous fiction. The world had been watching a performance one directed by those who profited most from royal unrest. The supposed rivalry had been turned into entertainment, with every silence twisted into suspicion, and every gesture framed as defiance. The revelation shattered months of speculation and exposed just how deeply external forces had entangled themselves in the palace's internal affairs. Even more startling was the discovery that certain leaks had been orchestrated from outside royal circles entirely. Emails and message trails pointed toward intermediaries, individuals who had access to sensitive information, and sold it to tabloids under the guise of anonymous palace insiders. The betrayal was not born from within the family, but from the periphery of its vast network of advisors, assistants, and so-called friends of the crown. It became clear that both women, Camilla and Kate, had been manipulated, their reputations used as currency in a larger game of influence and control. The palace, long accustomed to secrecy, suddenly found itself in a position where transparency was its only redemption. When the truth reached both women, exhaustion outweighed anger. Months of silent hostility, endless speculation, and emotional fatigue had taken their toll. According to insiders, Camilla and Kate agreed to a private meeting not as adversaries, but as two women bound by the same relentless institution. What transpired was less confrontation than catharsis. In that rare, unguarded exchange, both reportedly acknowledged how they had been played against one another, victims of a system that pitted them for survival rather than unity. Mutual understanding, once impossible, finally became inevitable. For the first time, the two most scrutinized women in the kingdom stood on the same side, defending not just their dignity, but the monarchy's humanity. William's quiet but steady influence became the invisible force that guided the family back from the brink. His calm leadership and unwavering protection of Kate's integrity earned him respect from even his harshest critics. While others reacted in panic, he understood what the monarchy needed most was not denial, but grace. His decision to prioritize truth over tradition, compassion over control, marked a turning point in how the royal family faced adversity. The scandal, once a sign of decay, now became a lesson in endurance. As the media scrambled to rewrite the story, the tone shifted dramatically. What had once been labeled the clash of queens was now reframed as a testament to resilience. Analysts called it a reckoning that redefined royal strength. Commentators praised both women for refusing to descend into pettiness, noting how Kate's unwavering composure had forced even the press to confront its own role in perpetuating cruelty. When she finally spoke again, her statement was brief but unforgettable, a message of forgiveness, unity, and forward vision. She reminded the world that dignity is not silence born of fear, but restraint born of strength. Her words resonated far beyond the palace gates. What began as a scandal ended as a story of transformation not just for her, but for the monarchy itself. The feud that had threatened to divide the crown instead became a moment of reckoning, forcing the institution to evolve in ways it never had before. The monarchy's survival was no longer tied to secrecy or suppression, but to vulnerability and truth. In that moment, Kate didn't just reclaim her image, she redefined what royal power meant in the modern age. And as the dust settles, one truth remains unshakable. Silence may have once protected the royals, but courage, at last, has begun to redefine them. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.